Welcome to TNT Sports Talk. Today is Thursday, August 16th. As always, we are presented by Dez Home Cuts. I'm your host, Travis Kerchiski, joined by nobody today. It's just me. Truman's out running around, so he had some stuff to do. So we didn't really have time to meet up today. So it's just going to be me for today. So just sit back, listen. We're going to go through a couple of these headlines here in sports. We're going to start with Hard Knocks. The second episode came out on Tuesday. It was a pretty good episode. I like the season so far. It's interesting, I guess, maybe because I'm, based out of Northeast Ohio, so, I'm used to going to, like, these training camps and being around Browns fans and stuff. So this is probably the closest team I've ever, related to with this show. It's not my favorite season so far. I really like the older seasons, the ones with the Cowboys, the ones with the Jets. That was pretty good. But this season's been pretty interesting so far. I think over the last couple weeks, I really gained a lot of respect for Hugh Jackson. I think most people have too. You saw the first episode. His mom and brother died in like a span of 2 weeks, and he was still coaching. He was still running training camp. You put anybody else in that situation where they lose two close family members so close together, they're gonna crack. They're not gonna be able to do their job. And Hugh just comes out and he coaches his butt off, and he's dealing with this whole family thing behind him. So it's been interesting to see that. And then especially you had this week with Antonio Callaway, which was kind of the big storyline of the episode. We talked about it last week. Antonio Callaway was pulled over in Strongsville, a suburb of Cleveland, driving around with a suspended license. And then when they searched his car, they found he had a little bit of weed and some parts from a gun. And his claim was he just got his car shipped up, and his brother and his friends were using his car, so it probably was their stuff. We don't know what happened there. We don't know the full story, but as far as we know, if we believe Antonio Callaway, he's telling the truth. It seems like a pretty good story. I believe him. I think the coaching staff in Cleveland believes him. But the episode was interesting because you saw, he was kind of scared to approach the coaches. He didn't really want to bring it up because he's had such a good camp, such a good summer. He's kind of turning his life around from where it was at Florida, where it was, a mess, and he was suspended a whole season because of his actions. And he's kind of been turning around this summer, and to just fall back like that, it had to have been really scary for him. He was obviously nervous to go tell the coaches that he did get pulled over and that he is in a little bit of trouble. But Hugh Jackson, sat him down. He could have screamed at him. He could have bitched him out, but he didn't. And he just kind of explained to him, you have to tell the coaches when something like this goes on. And Antonio kind of realized that. And I really enjoyed the punishment that Hugh Jackson gave him. He didn't suspend him. He didn't cut him. Like most people were saying he should have cut him because, Antonio Callaway is kind of on his last strike, I guess. But he didn't do anything like that. He actually did the exact opposite, and he played him every single snap, no matter what. Antonio Callaway was out there. And I know some people were kind of angry about that. They said, why would you kind of reward this guy with, more playing time after he made a mistake? But I really like that decision to suspend him, to make him play the whole game. Because if you've ever played in a football game, obviously high school football is different, but it's really tough to play a full game, especially at wide receiver where you're just running and running and running and running. And it really gave him a chance to kind of realize that what I did was wrong, and I'm not going to do it again because I don't want to, play a whole game of snaps where I'm just killing myself every single game, every single snap. So that was cool to see. It was a little bit of a different punishment. It wasn't, the average NFL punishment where, you suspend him or you cut him. And I guess he's on his last strike, which is not good, I would say, because if he does make a mistake, again, hopefully he doesn't. I think he's kind of turning his life around, but if he doesn't and he's gone, that's just going to be a huge waste of talent for the Browns, especially for him. I guess, the Browns, they got him late, a late round pick, and they got this guy late round, but he does have the talent to be a first rounder. If he wouldn't have gotten involved in all those drugs and all those problems at Florida, he would have been a first round pick. And the Browns got him so late. So he's just a bonus right now. If he does end up getting cut, he makes a mistake, I guess it's really no problem for the Browns because they didn't really waste a high pick on him. And he's shown so far that game. He showed flashes. He had a couple great catches. He had that slant route on a perfect pass from Baker Mayfield, which was a perfect catch and just a straight run down the field. This guy is explosive. You've seen why he has the talent to be a first round pick. And if he can turn his life around and get on the straight and narrow, which I think he will, the Browns got a steal. And it's just a great pick for the Browns because this is a first-round talent guy who they got. I forget what pick it was, but it was late rounds. So we'll watch this story as it unfolds because obviously he's going to be in the news for the next couple weeks, and he's going to be a big storyline on Hard Knocks because of his story. Then the next story on Hard Knocks, which was kind of, I thought what they would play a bigger part of it. Maybe next episode they will, which is the whole Corey Coleman saga. Corey Coleman drafted first round out of Baylor. I know Browns fans were so excited to watch him. He's a really explosive slot receiver kind of out of Baylor. He was their best player when Baylor was really, really good. And Browns have had a lot of success on the field with Baylor receivers in the past with Josh Gordon. So when Corey Coleman came into Cleveland, a lot of hype surrounded him, and he just hasn't lived up to that hype at all. He's shown some flashes. There's been some games where he's played well, and everybody's like, oh, that's good. We got somebody now. He's kind of turning it around. But all in all, you look on his whole career with the Browns, he's been a giant disappointment for them, and that's why they decided to trade him to Buffalo. And, leading up to the episode of Hard Knocks, everyone was saying, Hugh Jackson and him got into a huge fight. It's going to be shown on TV, and it's just going to, everybody wanted to watch and tune in for that. But it was kind of a letdown because they kind of cut it, I guess. They didn't want to show the whole thing. But it was interesting because, Corey Coleman, if you didn't know why he was sent down to the second team, he was pissed about that. First rounder got sent down to the second team because he thought he was going to be the starter. But with the reemergence of Callaway, Corey Coleman's skills really weren't that needed on the Browns offense, and he's not that good. He can't catch the ball as well as a guy like Antonio Callaway or Jarvis Landry. So he basically just walked into the office and said, if you're not going to play me, then just trade me. And Hugh Jackson said okay, and they traded him to the Bills for a late rounder. And that just shows, I think that's kind of a wake-up call for Corey Coleman because your first-round pick, you get traded for a seventh rounder in 2020. That should be a little bit of a wake-up call for you as a player because your skills just aren't that valuable anymore if you're getting traded for a seventh-round pick. Hopefully he can turn it around. I think he has the talent to turn it around. I just don't think he has the work ethic to do it. But maybe this is the kick in the pants he needed to really come back to his first-round potential talent that he showed out of Baylor. But we'll see. He's been dealing with injuries a lot. So I don't know. But then you saw last point about Hard Knocks, the whole Dez Bryant thing, which is usually, you don't see that a lot in Hard Knocks. They don't talk a lot about, that stuff. But I like that. Dez Bryant has been linked to the Browns the last couple of weeks, especially with Corey Coleman being traded, Josh Gordon being out of camp. The Browns really do have some need at wide receiver. And I think Dez Bryant could fill that hole pretty nicely. The only problem is, obviously, he's fallen off the last couple of years. But the fact that he's visiting today's Thursday, he's going to be visiting there today. I don't know if he leaves there with a deal. Dez Bryant, I think, is looking for the right situation. I don't think the Browns is the perfect situation. I think the best situation for Dez would be to go to the Packers on a one-year deal, but he won't do that. He's already said he refuses to play for the Packers. But we don't need him because we got 3 really good rookie wide receivers. So we'll see what happens there. If Dez Bryant signs with the Browns, I think obviously more talent in camp's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to bring in Dez Bryant, but with his history off the field, he's a big personality type of guy. He's going to walk into that locker room and he's going to want to be the top dog, especially in that wide receivers room. And he just doesn't have the talent or the big name as he did a couple years ago to really command a number one receiver type of level, if that makes sense. I think Jarvis Landry's established himself as the leader in that locker room pretty quickly, especially in that wide receiver room. And I don't think Jarvis Landry's going to take too kindly with Dez Bryant walking in there demanding that he's the number one guy. 'Cause he's not. He just doesn't have the talent to be the number one guy anymore. He's really fallen off. But obviously, like I said, more talent is a good thing. We'll see what John Dorsey and the Browns want to do. Obviously, bringing him in is a pretty big deal. But, Dez turned down a deal with the Ravens. He's obviously looking for something, there's some sort of number of years or amount of money that he has in his mind, or maybe it's the right situation for him to go play somewhere. Because if he turns down a deal with the Ravens, 2 months ago, why would he sign with the Browns, a team that went 0-16 last year, 1-15 the year before? Dez Bryant doesn't like losing. I don't think he's the type of guy who wants to be on a losing team. And going to the Browns, you're going to take that risk. But we'll see what happens there. Other news in NFL football, Jalen Ramsey back in the news again. Big personality, one of my favorite players. I really like Jalen Ramsey, especially the way he plays. But he caused a little bit of controversy over the week because he said, he had an article in GQ, and they basically just said, we're going to name all these quarterbacks. Tell us, what you think of them. And he just went down the list. They said, like, Aaron Rodgers. He said he doesn't suck. Tom Brady doesn't suck. Deshaun Watson. Oh, he'll be an MVP in a couple years. Mariota. Oh, I think he's a good quarterback for that team. Derek Carr, I think he's good. Matthew Stafford, I don't think he's that good. Jared Goff, he's average. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's kind of hyped up. Big Ben, he's decent. Eli Manning is not really that good. Ryan Tannehill, I don't know much about him. So obviously he went through the list. You can go look at it. He went through the whole list of a bunch of different guys, a bunch of different players, quarterbacks, and he just gave his opinion on all of them. And I thought it was interesting because I saw a tweet where they said, the guys he said were pretty good versus the guys he said, were average or they sucked. They saw his stats versus them. Jalen Ramsey's stats, like yards given up. And the guys he said were good, obviously Jalen Ramsey is a pretty good corner. So his stats weren't as good as the guys who he said sucked, if that makes sense. So like the passer rating for guys he said who sucked was pretty low when they were to throw against him versus the guys he said that were good. The passer rating was pretty decent, So he gave a pretty accurate statement on each of these guys. The one guy I would say he kind of got it wrong about is Andrew Luck, because he said Andrew Luck's not that good. He just said him and T.Y. Hilton had a pretty good connection, which made him stand out. But Andrew Luck, I think, has gotten kind of a bad rap the last couple of years due to injuries. Jalen's first year, Andrew Luck was hurt the whole year, and then obviously his second year he was out the whole entire year. So I don't think he's really got a clear view on Andrew Luck. But obviously a lot of these guys, it's, you can read the quotes and see what he, a lot of these are accurate, I think, in my mind. He said, Joe Flacco's not that good. It's just you go down the list and you can kind of get a clear view of what Jalen Ramsey thinks. He's obviously a pretty outspoken player, and it's kind of interesting to see what he thinks, especially a guy who's gone against all these quarterbacks. What he thinks of them is pretty interesting. So that's it for that. I guess another little story I wanted to talk about was all these fights going on in training camp. We've reached that point in the year where every single week now in training camp, you're reaching the dog days of training camp where, it's kind of getting annoying to go against the same guys every single day. You saw in Browns training camp, there was a huge fight with Jarvis Landry in a corner. Start to see this more and more. But especially they're doing now the split practices where teams will practice with each other and then they'll play in the preseason game. Just in the past week, you saw Terrell Pryor versus the Redskins. DeAndre Hopkins got in a fight with some of the 49ers players. The Raiders got in a fight with some team. I can't remember what. So training camp's reaching that point where it's kind of getting annoying. It's hot. You don't really want to be practicing. You just want to play. And you got these young guys trying to compete for a spot. So they're going to be going hard every single second. And that really makes the veterans pretty mad when they get, they're just trying to get through the day. Because they really don't need practice that much. But But you gotta love it. I mean, every time you go on Twitter and you see a new training camp fight, it's amazing to watch. It's so fun to watch these guys fight. You really just see the competitive nature of these guys come out. The one that I thought was interesting was Terrell Pryor versus the Redskins. DJ Swearinger took like a fake swing at Terrell Pryor. But I guess it came out after, Jay Gruden told the Redskin players not to fight Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor played there last year. I didn't know that he was like hated in Washington. Obviously he didn't have a great year, but I didn't think he was like hated there so much where Jay Gruden had to say like, don't fight the guy. But I mean, that's pretty interesting in that because Terrell Pryor, there wasn't a lot of stories last year where he was getting in fights with guys and stuff, but to go to another team and then he goes practices against his old team and he gets in fights, that's interesting. But these fights are awesome to watch. You're seeing it in baseball now too. End of August, end of August. It's kind of just a grind for sports. Baseball is in the middle of it. Training camp, like I said, is like we're right in the middle of that. And everybody's just trying to get to the next stage. Baseball's trying to get to the playoffs. Training camp's trying to get, NFL's trying to get to the first week. So these guys are just getting tired of doing the same thing day in and day out. And you see more and more fights are happening. And in baseball, it's, you saw the Dodgers and the Giants, I believe, getting a fight the other day. So I guess, it's just that summer heat is just getting to everybody. And, fans love watching this type of stuff. Obviously, you don't want to see a guy get hurt because of a fight. Like, if DeAndre Hopkins would have gotten hurt in training camp, that would have been not so good for the Texans because he's obviously pretty much their entire offense. But it's cool to see, these fights on Twitter every now and then. With that, we're going to move on to baseball, but before that, I wanted to remind you that our show is brought to you by Dez Home Cuts. Dez is the best place around Northeast Ohio for a great haircut at a low and fair price. For only $7, Dez Home Cuts will provide you with a modern haircut and styling. Truman and I have been getting our haircut over there for the last couple months, and we have never looked or felt better. Every single time you're going to go into the shop, you're going to get a professional cut. They get better every single time because he is always upgrading his equipment to give you the best haircut possible. Trust me, you will not be able to find a better, cheaper haircut anywhere around Northeast Ohio. $7 for a haircut that's insane. I know people who will pay upwards of $25 and up for a haircut when you can just go to Dom's. $7, cheap, great haircut. You have a great time while you're sitting there playing video games in the chair listening to music. He's got refreshments now in his shop. It's just a really easy, quick cut, and you won't find any place better. You can go to the big name guys like Great Clips or something like that, and there's a chance that they'll screw it up. You're gonna have to talk to somebody you really don't want to be talking to, like a hairdresser or something, and it just gets really annoying, and you really don't want to be there, and most of the time they screw up your haircut and you end up looking like an idiot. Go to Dom's. It's cheaper. You'll get a way better haircut. Dom is a great guy. He's going to do the best possible job that he can. He'll give you tips about how to style your hair, he'll cut it the way he thinks will make it look really good. And every time you go, the cuts get better every single time. So go on his Instagram, set up an appointment. If you're going to set up an appointment, I recommend doing it sooner rather than later because he is going to college, and I think there's going to be a little bit of a gap to where he's going to have to try to figure out how he's going to do his haircuts. So get in there before he leaves. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These home cuts, professional haircuts at a low price. So we're moving on to baseball. Again, like I said, dog days of baseball. We talked about the playoffs on Tuesday, the rankings, and everybody's kind of hitting their stride so far. You can kind of tell who's going to be a playoff team, who's not going to be. The Astros. Jeez, the Astros are sucking. They look like complete shit right now. They've lost 9 straight, I believe. It's Thursday morning. They've lost 9 straight. Justin Verlander got rocked in his last start. They got Garrett Cole. They had Garrett Cole going yesterday. I don't know if they won or not, but they did lose 9 straight at one point. So don't be surprised if the Indians take that number 2 seed. That would be huge for them. But like I said, baseball, we're in the dog days. teams that suck, it's kind of getting annoying. But baseball's doing, and fans aren't really tuning in as much anymore because they kind of can tell where their team is at. If a team sucks, people aren't going to tune in because why would I want to watch a team lose 20-0? So the MLB is trying to combat this. Every year they lose viewership around this time of year because it's just not exciting, especially with preseason football starting. So they did this thing last year. They're doing it again this year, the Players Weekend, which I really like. I think it's a really smart, fun idea. They do these uniforms, these Player Weekend uniforms. Where on the back they can put their nickname instead of their real name. So everybody puts nicknames on their jerseys. You can go down, you can look it up. Player Weekend, jerseys, and you can just read all of these, funny, nicknames and jerseys, and it's pretty cool. It's a great idea. I really like how baseball does this. I'm very critical of the MLB because I think they do a pretty bad job marketing baseball to fans, especially the younger audience. But this is they do a lot of dumb things, but this is a good idea. I like it. It's cool. It's interesting. It kind of breaks up the monotony of MLB baseball this time of year. So it's pretty cool to watch. These jerseys are interesting. You get to see kind of a different side of players that you don't really get to see because, again, the MLB does a terrible job at marketing their players. But it's cool. I know, like Trevor Bauer does Bauer Outage. Francisco Lindor does Mr. Smile. Everybody has one, and it's just a great experience. So tune in to that this weekend. You're going to want to watch that. It's pretty cool. I think it starts Friday, and it's just a great time. So that's it for baseball. Like I said, we're in the dog days. It's kind of getting harder and harder to find storylines because people are just trying to get through each day. But once September hits and those call-ups happen, we're really going to see these divisions get tight, players playing a lot harder than they usually do because they really want to get into the playoffs because playoff baseball is just so amazing. But we're going to move now to basketball. Again, we've kind of reached that sweet spot in the year where, preseason's starting up, so that's exciting. So there's a lot of stories in the NFL. But like basketball and baseball, there's not a lot going on. Because nobody's reporting to camp. Pretty much all the free agents are signed, except Dwayne Wade. I don't know what he's going to do. So there's really not a lot to talk about. But the one thing I did want to talk about was the Los Angeles Lakers. So over the offseason, obviously they've had the biggest offseason of anybody, signing LeBron James. And, there's been a lot of people are saying, it doesn't really matter. The Lakers might not even make the playoffs. And they've just been signing a lot of strange players. So we got a question I wanted to address. Are the Lakers being underestimated, in the national media, around fans? Are they being underestimated? I thought about this a lot. I don't think they are. Obviously they have LeBron. They have Kyle Kuzma. They have Brandon Ingram. They have Lonzo Ball. So they have a lot of young talent. But you look at these signings, Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee, Michael Beasley. There's probably some more that I'm missing. We'll go over that in their team reviews a couple weeks from now. These players that they've added and this young talent that they supposedly have, I think is a little overrated. Lance Stevenson's a pretty good defensive player. Michael Beasley's a pretty good offensive player. JaVale McGee's a pretty decent center. And then you look, I think, out of those, the three young talent that they supposedly have with Kuzma, Lonzo Ball, and Brandon Ingram, I think Kuzma has the highest ceiling. I don't think people have been waiting for Brandon Ingram to turn it on for the last couple of years, and he just hasn't. I just don't think he will. I think he's kind of reached his ceiling of just being a decent NBA player. And I don't think Lonzo Ball is going to be all that. I think you saw last year, he had some injuries. I think his dad's going to get in the way of his success. I think Los Angeles was a bad place for him to go because he's so close to his family there. And I think his dad's going to ultimately, bring him down more than bring him up. But they have LeBron, so I think they're going to make the playoffs, but I just don't think that they're going to compete for a championship in the next couple of years because this team just doesn't have enough talent. And I don't think, you look, I guess you could say they're a little bit better. LeBron has a little bit more talent than he had last year in Cleveland. but he's playing in a way tougher conference. This isn't the East. He's not going to be playing the Raptors in the first round every single year. He's going to be playing Portland, which is a really good team. The Jazz, young, good team. Oklahoma City, which is what we're going to get into in a little bit here. There's a lot of talent in the West, and LeBron's got to face it all in the playoffs. I don't think he goes very far, and I think that's going to come to a bit to a shock to him that he can't just walk into the playoffs and waltz right to the finals. I think LeBron chose Los Angeles not because it's the best place for him to win a championship. I think he chose it because he really wants to do a bunch of stuff off the basketball court in terms of, TV, movies, and stuff like that. So I don't think this was a pure basketball decision that he made. I think he just wanted to go to Los Angeles because he wanted to get in more into like the whole Hollywood thing, which makes me want to puke because I don't like LeBron. But we'll see what happens. I think you're going to see a sharp decline in his career. But what's a sharp decline to LeBron? I think you're going to see Kevin Durant kind of overtake him in the next couple years here as being the best player in the league. And I think he's starting to overtake him now. Cavs fans don't like to hear that. But if he really wants to win a championship, I don't think Los Angeles is the best place for him. But as far as being underestimated, no. I think they're being perfectly estimated the place that they should be, which is a decent team that's going to make the playoffs, but then that's about it. They're not going to go far in the playoffs, and I could see them getting bounced out in the first or second round. But I could see them not even making the playoffs just because this whole team could become a shit show pretty quickly with all these personalities. LeVar Ball yelling from the rafters. So we'll see what happens there. We're going to stick with our team reviews now, though. We're going to do the fourth seeds from the East and the West last year. We're going to do the Cavs and the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is probably both of these teams have had the most exciting off seasons, for better or for worse, out of any of the teams we reviewed yet. So we'll go with the Cavs. Losing LeBron James is probably one of the biggest losses you could take as an NBA franchise. Losing a guy like that, one of the best players of all time, losing a guy like that who's led your team to all these finals, that hurts a lot, and it's really hard to replace him. Drafting Colin Sexton was a great pick, though. Signing back guys like Channing Frye, bringing him back was a good decision. And then they traded for Sam Dekker, who I think is kind of an underrated guy in the NBA. But I know Cavs fans, it's really hard to see you guys lose LeBron James for the second time. A guy who's really carried your franchise the last couple of years. To lose him again, it hurts a lot. And I was around when he left the first time, and it hurt a lot to see Cavs fans suffer like this. Plus they were in such a bad spot when LeBron left. They had no talent. But there is hope for Cavs fans because I think where they're at now is better than where they were before the first time LeBron left. Colin Sexton's a good young point guard. They have Kevin Love, who's an all-star. They didn't have an all-star when LeBron left the first time. So I think Kevin Love becomes that leader. Colin Sexton becomes a pretty solid young rookie. This team has talent. And Tristan Thompson, I think, is a pretty good center. George Hill's a solid player. J.R. Smith's still pretty decent. If they re-sign Rodney Hood, that's a good offensive player off the bench. So I think this team has the talent to get, a 7th or 8th seed. They don't have enough talent to get to the championship. But all hope isn't lost for Cleveland fans. And I think that's something to look up to now, especially because the first time LeBron left, it was a mess here for a couple of years. Just looking at that roster from like 2014 when LeBron wasn't here, it was a mess, and I remember watching those games. And I think Colin Sexton could be a pretty good player. So 7th or 8th seed, competing for the playoffs all year. I could see that now. It's going to be different for Cavs fans, though, because they're used to really not caring about the regular season, but they're going to have to start caring because these regular season games are going to be a lot more important than they were last year when they had LeBron just carrying them. Then you go to Oklahoma City in the West there, a team who's undergone a lot of changes in the past couple of years, but they had a pretty good offseason. Obviously, I'm a Carmelo Anthony fan. I think losing Carmelo Anthony was good for them. I don't think Carmelo Anthony fit that system really well there in Oklahoma City. I think he was pretty difficult to play with, I think Russ and him didn't mesh very well because they both, want the offense to run through them. But they did a really, 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 really good job at their offseason. Getting Dennis Schroeder for Carmelo Anthony, losing Carmelo Anthony's contract was huge. Dennis Schroeder is a really good young point guard. To sit behind Russell Westbrook is going to help a lot. He's a huge upgrade over their last year's backup point guard, Raymond Felton. So that's going to help. Adding Nerlens Noel, again, that's more depth. Obviously, he hasn't been what people thought he could be coming out of Kentucky, but he's a pretty solid player. So to add him, that's a huge for them. Where this team goes, though, I don't know. I think they'll be a little bit better than last year. Maybe challenge Portland for that 3rd seed, but the Jazz are going to be pretty good again this year. So, I don't know. I could see 3rd, 4th seed, maybe making it to like the 2nd round, getting past the 1st round. Hopefully, obviously Russell Westbrook's one of the best players in the NBA, and so is Paul George. So I don't really know, but we'll see. There, like I said, I think Cavs maybe 8th. I'm gonna go Cavs 8th seed. Oklahoma City. I'm gonna say they get to the 3rd seed because I think they added a lot of talent. They signed back some pretty good talent, so we'll see what happens there. So we're going to move now to a couple more segments to finish up the show here. Wanted to remind you that our show is brought to you, though, by A's Lawn Service. A's Lawn Service has been the best place around Northeast Ohio to provide you with professional landscaping at a low and fair price. Since 2014, A's has been using professional equipment to constantly strive to provide families with professional landscaping at a low and fair price. Turn to A's and trust me, your lawn and your home will never look better. It's a small group of kids all going to college, trying to make money for college, all led by Andrew Ellis, the owner. Like I said, he's been running this since 2014. He does a really good job on your lawn and your home. Make your lawn and your home look a lot better. Like I said, preseason football is starting up. Week 1's right around the corner. You don't really want to be spending your Sundays and your Saturdays with college football starting, mowing the lawn, mulching, pulling weeds, getting it ready for, doing leaves, getting it ready for the winter and the fall. Turn to A's, let him take care of all that. He'll do a great job. It's affordable, and you will not be disappointed. The phone number is 330-241-2392. Again, 330-241-2392. And the email is lawnservice.a's@gmail.com. A's Lawn Service LLC. You grow it, we cut it. So we haven't done a lot of these in the past because we've had other, big storylines. We haven't had much time. We're going to do a what would have happened today. This what would have happened is one that's kind of close to my heart. The 2014 NFC divisional game, Packers versus Cowboys, where Dez Bryant dropped the ball in the end zone. So we're going to do what would have happened if Dez would have caught it. So, I'm going to take you back to that day. It's 2014, the Cowboys versus Packers. Take you back a little bit that season. Packers have had a pretty good year, making it all the way to the playoffs, making it all the way to the divisional round. But the Cowboys, 12-4, best offensive line in football. A defense is coming together with the triple-headed monster of offensive skill positions with Dez Bryant, Jason Witten, and DeMarco Murray, the NFL's leading rusher. And then you have a guy like Tony Romo kind of commanding that all at quarterback. This was a really good team. And this was, I think, the last year that, Tony Romo and Dez Bryant and Jason Witten all kind of came together again. So this was a special year for Cowboys fans. So they obviously, I think, had the talent to go all the way. But the fourth quarter, losing, I think, 26-21. Tony Romo throws a pass on 4th and 2 to Dez Bryant in the end zone. He goes up off of Sam Shields, the cornerback for the Packers, now a Ram. Comes down with the ball. Everyone in Green Bay is pissed because they think he caught it. But he hits the ground, drops the ball. We go to review. Turns out he actually did drop the ball, and that was it. The Packers went on to win the game, went on to go to Seattle the next week and lose off of a Brandon Bostic missed catch off the onside kick. One of the worst moments in my life. But what would have happened, let's say, if the NFL rules are the way they are now, and it would have ruled that Dez actually did catch it, and that was a touchdown. Obviously, I trust Aaron Rodgers enough to go back down. I think we would have had about 2 minutes left. I trust Aaron Rodgers that he would have went down the field and scored really easily, and nothing would have changed. But let's say that Dez caught it, and let's say something happened where we lost the game. The Packers lost the game, and the Cowboys won that game. What would the NFL look like today? I think it would look way different than what it is right now. They would have went to Seattle that next week, the Cowboys. And if you remember, I think the Cowboys beat Seattle in Seattle earlier that year, like 30-20 or something like that. I don't have it in front of me. So would they have beaten Seattle in Seattle? I don't think so. I think Seattle would have won to the Super Bowl. I think the same thing would have happened with, the Malcolm Butler play, not running Lynch up the middle. But let's just say, for argument's sake here, that Dallas beats Seattle in that game, in that championship game. They go to the Super Bowl. Dallas versus the Patriots. Probably the two most popular franchises in all of sports even, going against each other in one of the biggest stages on earth. I think the Patriots would have won that game. I think the Patriots had a lot more talent that year. But let's just say, for argument's sake, we put Dallas on that goal line where Seattle was. I think Dallas is smart enough, especially with that offensive line. I trust Jason Garrett to run that ball up the middle with their NFL leading rusher, DeMarco Murray, and they score. No pass, no bullshit, no passing like Pete Carroll, the idiot Pete Carroll did. And they would have ran it up the middle, and they would have scored. They would have won that game, and Dallas would have won a Super Bowl, making it their 6th Super Bowl and their first one in, I think, close to 15, 20 years. What would have happened then? In the offseason, if you remember, they got rid of DeMarco Murray. They signed Dez Bryant to a big deal. I think with DeMarco Murray winning that Super Bowl for him pretty much with that run, I think they would have kept DeMarco Murray over Dez Bryant. I think they would have let Dez Bryant go. I think they would have kept DeMarco Murray just because he's kind of the hero. And they wouldn't have drafted Zeke Elliott, I think, 2 years later. I'm not sure who they would have drafted. I didn't do that much research. But you think about it, no more Zeke Elliott. I think Zeke Elliott would have went to like the Browns or something like that, Ohio State guy, and Browns fans would be ecstatic where they're at right now. But then DeMarco Murray, what would he have done with that offensive line for another couple of years? I think he would establish himself again as one of the best running backs in the NFL. Because if you remember, he left that year and went to the Eagles and was kind of stuck in a running back tandem there, I think with Chip Kelly. So his career kind of took a nosedive just because of that, not running upon that offensive line. So it's interesting. Like I said, that's why we do these what would have happened. Because if you look at it, just because Dez Bryant dropped that ball, or they ruled it a drop, it impacted so many things, so much. It changed the entire landscape of the NFL for the next couple years. If they would have ruled that a catch, the NFL now would look way different than what it does now. And it just seems so, such a small moment because it was just a 4th and 2, You don't think that would really impact the NFL the way it did, but it really would have, because it would have changed the entire landscape of the NFL. Now, if I'm thinking, what I think would have happened, I think Dallas would have went to Seattle. I think Dallas would have lost. I think Seattle would have won. And I think we'd be right back where we were. But, for argument's sake, what if they would have won that Super Bowl? Would Dez Bryant have signed that big deal? Would DeMarco Murray have left? Would Tony Romo, kind of phased out like he did? Would they have drafted Dak Prescott? Would Jason Witten have retired a little bit earlier because he really wanted a Super Bowl? It's interesting to look at that. But that's it for that. That's our what would have happened. I like doing those, especially when I have to fill, an hour worth of time by myself. It's kind of interesting to really dive into that. So we're going to do a couple of question and answers. Keep sending those in, guys. We really do like doing these question and answers. Anything you want answered, we love to talk about that. So, obviously, preseason week 2 is coming up. It's tonight. We got some action going on. I think the Browns play tonight. Hold on, let me pull up the schedule. I think the Browns play tonight. I'm not sure. I think they play the Bills tonight. I know the Packers play the Steelers. So one of the questions we got, here we go, I got the schedule in front of me, is what are some of the rookies that we're going to be watching in week 2? I think obviously you got to look at the first round. We're going to see what Baker Mayfield can do with more of a with a little bit more hype around him. Obviously you're going to see Sam Darnold tonight. He's playing the Redskins. Saquon Barkley going against the Lions, I think. Yes, the Lions. But one guy I really want to watch for, a guy we talked about a couple, I think last show, is Josh Rosen. He's going to be playing the Saints tomorrow on Friday at 8 o'clock. What does he do now? I mean, he kind of had a kind of boring start. Nothing really stood out to me on paper, it was kind of a, just a ho-hum type of a start. So let's see if he bounces back and becomes, what we think he can become, a first-round pick quarterback. Because if he doesn't, that's a huge... The Cardinals fans got to be a little worried if he just kind of sucks it up out there again. But then, obviously, we're going to be all watching the Browns and the Bills. That's tomorrow. That's not tonight. There's actually only 3 games on tonight. Eagles, Patriots, Super Bowl matchup. Jets, Redskins, Steelers, Packers, which I'm going to be watching all of those, obviously. But Browns-Bills interesting because Corey Coleman just got traded there a week ago. Now he's playing against his former team. There's going to be some bad blood there, especially after that Hard Knocks episode. There's going to be some bad blood. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some, pregame video, something like a Kelvin Benjamin thing with Cam Newton. But we'll see what happens there. So be watching those games. I'm going to be watching Josh Rosen this weekend. And that's that for that. What rookie I'd be watching? Josh Rosen. Last question we got is, what should Nick Saban do at quarterback? I think that's pretty obvious. You got to go with the hot hand. You got to start Tua. I think benching. Tua is an interesting story. If he came in halftime in the national championship game and won them that championship game, reports are he said if he wouldn't have played at all that year, he wouldn't have played in that game, he would have left. He would have transferred, which is interesting because, what would Alabama look like without Tua? Would they have won that national championship game if they would have left Jalen Hurts in? But now they got a pretty tough situation because if they don't start Tua, could he move on? I think they have to keep him. I think they have to start him. But Jalen Hurts, he's a guy who's won you a lot of games. He's won you a national championship game. And to kind of just bench him just because he had, one bad half of football is insane. But Nick Saban doesn't really care about your emotions. He doesn't really care what people think of him. He doesn't really care what the players think. He's going to do what's best for his team. And I think at the time, right now, he believes Tua is the best quarterback for him. And I think Tua is a way better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. And I was surprised Jalen Hurts didn't transfer. I think he should have gone to another school. But we'll see what happens. I heard he was talking maybe moving positions. I don't think he should do that. I think he should stay at quarterback. And like I said, I think he should have transferred. But as far as what should Saban do or what will he do, I think it's the same answer. Start Tua, go with your hot hand, go with the way better player, and, dominate, which I think Alabama will do again this year. So that's it for our show today. I want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, D's Home Cuts and A's Lawn Service. We ask that you go onto iTunes, give us 5 stars, rate, review us, and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram or Twitter at TNT Sports Talk 12. Send us your questions that you want us to answer. Send us any comments, concerns, because we keep trying to grow this into a bigger and bigger thing. You can listen to us tomorrow on 12 ounce. I believe it's at 7 o'clock at night Eastern time, although I'm not exactly sure. The schedule's kind of changing around. Listen to us on YouTube anytime. Listen to past episodes, past interviews with some of our guys. Shout out Tim Boyle, Zach Triner, Logan Ice, the athletes we've gotten that, Tim Boyle and Zach Triner are balling up right now in preseason. Shout out to those guys. But we'll see what happens there. Obviously, once those cuts start happening. But I think they put themselves in a really good position to make the team. And we're really proud of them here at TNT Sports Talk. But that's it for today. Again, I want to thank you for listening. No Truman, so it's just me. So it's kind of hard to talk for like 45 straight minutes right now, just about sports. But we thank you for listening. If you listen every single week, we love you. It's, we really like doing this. We really like putting out a good product. I'm not sure. College is starting here soon for both me and Truman. Truman's going to be living on campus. I commute, so I'll be here. I'm not sure how often we'll get me and Truman together. You might see more of just me, just my episodes with just me talking. Or, we don't really know what we're going to do yet there. But obviously we're going to put out shows every single day, every 2 times a week, every single Tuesday, every single Thursday. So we're going to keep bringing you sports talk until, nobody wants to listen anymore. But we're really happy with what we're doing right now, and we're really excited to keep going. But that's it for today. Tune in on Tuesday. We're going to probably try to have a guest then. Truman should be here on Tuesday, but everybody's going away to college, so it's a little bit difficult to find guests now. But that's it, obviously. Have a great day. Tune in on Tuesday. Thanks, guys.